Good afternoon, Sean. How are you today?
I'm good. It's nice to see friendly faces.
Haven't seen a whole lot of people over the last couple of weeks for sure.
I know. I've even started just talking to the dog to have a conversation.
Yeah, mine just runs around and acts crazy, or one of them tries to bite, and it's never fun. So,
Okay.
well,
Hey,
we'll get
Sean,
started just a couple minutes.
hey, I
Yeah.
shared your link with my coworkers at work, so you might have some pop on that you might not know, but is that okay? I can't hear you.
I lost you on my end. I'm sorry.
I shared your link with a few coworkers. I hope you don't mind.
Don't mind at all. Happy for anybody who'd like to attend this, and hopefully get some information out to kind of help people.
All right, I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. Give me a thumbs up if you can kind of hear me, if everything sounds good on your end. Okay, couple people, perfect. Um, I want you guys to understand, first of all, that I am not a genius on this. But I was a banker for 14 years. I understand a little bit of what the bankers are going through, the processes that they're doing through the SBA. I will say, have a little sympathy for your bankers. I know it's hard for everybody right now, but they're struggling trying to get through these. I was on a conference call this morning with Commerce Secretary Copeland, who is a banker. His bank typically gets 70 to 100 loan applications a month. They received 1,100 on Friday. So if you're applying for this PPP loan and you don't hear from your banker in 24 hours, understand they're working on it. It's very difficult for them to get through this. So give them a little bit of leeway. When we get to the question and answer part of it, feel free to direct question me or do it to everybody. Either way is fine. I'll try and answer the questions that I can. I cannot tell you how much to put in for your payroll. I can't do those numbers. The best answer that I can say is contact your CPA if you have questions about exactly how much to put in. And they can actually be paid by the SBA for helping you with this paperwork. So it's really a win-win for everybody. If you have somebody that really knows what they're doing with the numbers, that should help you out. So everything I'm going to give you today is information that I've gotten from either SBA directly or through the Oklahoma Chamber or Commerce Department, emails that I've sent with SBA. I will say that the information changes all the time, and I say that in here. It's very difficult for these programs. They threw this together in less than 2 weeks. Since the bill was passed, they had to write rules. It is very difficult. So hopefully you'll get something out of this. Feel free to answer or ask questions throughout, and I'll get to them as I can. So I did a slideshow, and I'll kind of discuss some of them. Let's see, there we go. So we're going to talk about the Paycheck Protection Program and the EIDL program. There we go. All information is subject to changes as SBA is changing it almost daily basis. Majority of the information in the presentation has been around for the past 2 weeks, so it's expected to stay the same. The reason that I'm saying that is because SBA is not even allowing anybody to record phone calls, since this is going to be out recorded on our Pioneer Tech Facebook page on YouTube. I want to make sure that everybody understands this could change today, if not tomorrow. So please understand that. And if I could get this to work, well, okay, let's try that again. For some reason that quit. Okay. SBA is telling everyone, and I agree with them, there's no reason to pay someone to complete the application. This is mainly on the EIDL loan, the EIDL loan. It is very simple. If at most you'll need a couple of numbers from your CPA, but it's a very simple program to use. Don't trust any SBA sites. Don't put your checking account information in unless it ends in SBA.gov. There's a lot of fraudulent websites out there right now. So just confirm that you're putting it in the right place. SBA will not be contacting you via email or anything asking for your account information. So with the EIDL loan, they'll fund up to $2 million for 30 years, and there's no fees on this loan. There's no origination fee, no documentation fee, nothing. The interest rate is 3.75% fixed, 2.75% for nonprofits, 12 months to your first payment. Now, SBA keeps saying terms up to 30 years. If you borrow $10,000, I won't say that they're going to go 30 years on you. If you borrow $2 million, they very well will let you go 30 years on that loan. They're not publishing exactly dollar amounts or if there's collateral or not. They just say up to 30 years. So do understand that. They determine your loan amount based on the financial information that you provide. You get 6 months of working capital. The approval is determined by credit score. Basically, as long as you don't owe the government money via taxes or back child support or anything, I don't know that credit score really matters. Unless you're really past due on everything right now, they might question that a little bit. If you're denied the first time, apply a second time because you very well could get in that second one. And repayments based on your financial data that you provide. The application, once again, is very simple. Almost all businesses under 500 employees are eligible. I will say for the EIDL and the PPP in Oklahoma, the marijuana industry we know is growing. Those are not eligible for either program. Sole proprietors, self-employed nonprofits, tribal entities or tribal businesses, veterans organizations, and independent contractors. If you are in the hospitality, there are some exceptions. If you have over 500 employees, that's a NICS code 72. Get with me if you're in that. I don't know that anybody that signed up is involved in that, but get with me. 3 to 6 week turnaround. SBA started out saying that it was 25 days, then they said 21, and then they got so many applications. Now they're saying up to 6 weeks. So this is not going to be a fast turnaround on that up to $2 million loan. You can get an advance of up to $10,000, and that's the EIDL forgiveness advance. It's up to $10,000, but that's going to be based on the number of employees. The number that I'm hearing is if you have one employee, you're probably going to get $1,000 advance, and that's all you're going to get. I'm not saying that that is a set in stone number, but you're not going to get a lot. If you have 50 employees, you very easily could get that full amount. The advance is forgivable. SBA says 3-day turnaround on that portion of the loan. Faith-based organizations may be eligible for the EIDL. It has gone back and forth with SBA on that. Sometimes I hear they are, sometimes I hear they're not. So I would say if you're faith-based and you want to apply, feel free. The worst they can do is say no. If the loan amount is under 25,000, it's unsecured, but they will take collateral if it's over 25,000. They're saying if it's over 250,000, they want real estate. I don't know for sure how accurate that is. Once again, this stuff's changing daily. Personal guarantees are required of all owners over 200,000 though. That part I am certain of. You can use the funds for pretty much anything. You can use it for the current portion of your long-term debt, which are payments that are due within a year on your mortgage loan, on your checking or on car loans for the business, any type of debt there. Payroll, utilities, rent, mortgage, and accounts payable. I do want you to, we'll get to payroll, utilities, rent, mortgage in a little bit. I want you to kind of keep that in the back of your head though. Not acceptable use funds, expansion, paying off or consolidating existing loans, or to replace lost sales or profits. And that's about all I'm going to do on the EIDL loan. It's pretty simple. Doesn't need a lot. The paycheck protection, the PPP, is a lot more what people are going for right now. You can do both loans, and the biggest thing on that is you can't use them for the same thing. So as I said a minute ago, paycheck protection, you're getting payroll funds. You can't use the EIDL funds for paycheck as well, or it's not forgivable. The Paycheck Protection Program is 100% forgiven if you spend the money correctly. Once again, all businesses under 500 employees are eligible. Sole proprietors, self-employed, nonprofits, tribal, same thing, same people. Funds must be spent for 8 weeks of payroll to your employees. Employee compensation and your numbers must remain the same to get the forgiven part. And I'll get into some details on that in a little bit. Faith-based is eligible. It is an unsecured loan. No personal guarantees required. For sole proprietors, self-employed, and independent contractors, the rules are supposed to come out on Friday. I would be very surprised if they actually do, guys. It's kind of a little more difficult to figure those payroll portions out and how they're going to account for that. So it may be out Friday, but if you're a sole proprietor, self-employed, or an independent contractor, your bank may not be ready on Friday. I would be surprised if they're ready before Monday, to be honest. So hold tight if you can and try and wait till Monday to call your banker. Whoops. They'll fund up to $10 million in payroll. The term of the loan is 2 years. There's no fees associated with the loan to the borrower. The bank does get an origination fee, but it comes from SBA. If you don't spend the money the way you're supposed to, it'll be 6 months till you have to make your first payment if you do have to pay a portion of it back. And the interest rate's only 1% on it. So even as a worst case scenario, if you don't spend the money correctly and it turns into a loan, you'll never find an interest rate as cheap as that. You determine your payroll amount. The bank does not. I've spoken with a couple of banks. They will not help you with this number at all. Other banks may be willing to. This is where you can bring your CPA in. They can fill out the financial part of it, and they can actually get paid by the bank to do this through that origination fee. So I highly recommend speaking with your CPA and making sure that you, or bookkeeper, if that's what you have, to make sure that you put this information in correctly, because you want to make sure that you don't have to pay it back. So the way that they're funding this one is you get 2.5 times your monthly payroll, a minimum, and that's supposed to be 8 weeks worth of payroll, 2 weeks worth. So the remaining 2 weeks will be used for rent, utilities, or the interest portion of your existing debt. And I said debt there, and that should be mortgage. That's a mortgage on your building if you own your building. If not, it can be used for utilities and rent. Your payroll is capped at 100,000 per employee. So if you're in an office that has, let's say, 10 engineers and they all make $120,000 a year, that does not mean that you don't qualify for that. What that means is you only act like you're paying them 100,000 a year. And so you'll put your payroll in based on that. So it doesn't work for any income above 100,000. To apply for the Paycheck Protection Program, you need an application. Your bank probably has it on their website by now. And I will say here in Ponca City, with the exception of the branch that's inside Walmart, because I have not been into Walmart to talk to them, all of your local banks here in Ponca are doing these loans. All of the banks in Blackwell I know are doing them. I know for sure one in Tonkawa and the one in Newkirk are. If you are not in Ponca, contact your local bank that you typically do business with. If you have to go to a bank that you're not a customer of, you're going to go to the bottom of the pile. So even if your banker isn't getting back to you as soon as you think they should be, you're still going to be ahead of the game if you go to a new bank. So I really recommend trying to stick with your normal bank. You have to have proof of your payroll information. Some of the banks are having, like I said, these rules have come down so quickly. Banks are kind of trying to figure out what that information is. You're going to need last year's tax information and probably the first quarter of this year to prove what you're paying on your payroll. If you're going to a new bank, or if your bank doesn't have your corporate documents, you'll need to provide those, your bylaws, your operating agreement, your certificate of LLC, those kind of things, everything that you would need to open a checking account as a business. Social Security card and driver's license of all owners over 20%. The bank will provide you a certificate of beneficial ownership form. That's a new form. It's kind of a couple years old. It just says what entities you have an interest in. And these applications will be allowed until June 30th per SBA. So what can be included for payroll? I'll let you guys just kind of read that one there. Salaries, wages, commissions, and tips is what most of us think of. For sole proprietors or independent contractors, it's going to cap at 100,000. Once again, we don't know what the rules are for those sole proprietors and independent contractors. That's hopefully we'll know that on Friday and can help more people out, because that's a lot of the population, especially in Ponca that I've spoken with over the last week, will fit into that category of payroll. Look for payroll. Your payroll may not be forgiven if any of these things occur. Your loan forgiveness will be reduced if you decrease your full-time employee headcount. So if you had 10 employees on January 30th, and I'm just picking a date, and you only have 8 at the end of this forgiveness period, 8 on June 30th, then you're going to have to pay back 20% of that loan. Once again, 1% interest rate, but you shouldn't have paid out that 8 weeks of payroll to 2 of those employees. So it shouldn't be much of a charge to you, because you shouldn't have spent that money anyways. It should be there to pay that back. If your level of payroll decreases by more than 25%, then you will have to pay it back. And that'll be, the way I understand that is, it'll be like you didn't pay that employee anything. So let's say an employee got $1,000 a month and you only pay them $700. You're going to have to pay that full $1,000 back, not just the $300 that you didn't pay them. That's my understanding of it. Once again, it's so fluid, it kind of changes, but that's kind of my understanding. You have until June 30th to restore your full-time employment and salary levels for any changes made between February 15th and April 26th. So it's not that you have to get them hired back today, but you have to have them hired back before June 30th. When it comes time to pay the loan off, you've paid your 8 weeks of salary, you've spent the other 2 weeks on rent or utilities, mortgage interest, you're going to have to send a letter to your bank, as well as all documentation showing how the funds were spent, to get the loan forgiven. So that means that you are going to have to get that squared away one way or another. You're going to have to be able to verify that you paid this payroll somehow. My personal recommendation is open up a new checking account. Put this money into that checking account and pay out of that. Get temporary checks for it if you need to, but do something where you can guarantee with 100% certainty to say, here's where every penny that I received came from, where there's no question. That is the easiest way for most of us to do this. Put in the memo line of your checks, PPP funds. You can always find it that way as well. So that's a little, I guess, kind of a banking tidbit in my recommendation on that. How do you compute payroll for it? And this came directly from SBA, so the wording is not how I would have done it, so I apologize for that. If you're in business February 15th to June 30th of 2019, your max loan amount is equal to 250% of your average monthly payroll cost during that time period. So if you take your monthly payroll times 2.5, if your business employs seasonal workers, you can opt to choose March 1st as your time period start date. So if you were a lawn care company, you don't do a whole lot in February, you can start May 1st to June 30th. If you're not in business between February 15th to June 30th, same thing, 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs, but you use January 1st to February 29th of 2020 as your payroll and for the number of employees that you have. If you took out an economic injury loan between February 15th and June 30th into a PPP, you add the outstanding loan amount to the payroll sum. I'll say if you got one of those loans, just get with me, because odds are most of you have not had that happen yet. So get with me if you did. And you can pay the salary for any 8-week payroll period between now and the end of June. If you get the loan funds today, which I spoke with the local business owner today, she banks with one of our local banks here in Ponca. She received her PPP funds today. So those funds are getting cranked out as quick as the banks can. One of the banks received 186 applications on Friday, so they are getting through them. They're working long hours, so just be patient with them, but the funds are coming out. These are some important links for you that I recommend you kind of look at. You don't need the whole thing. If you Google Treasury Department, you can go out there and see a lot of information on the Paycheck Protection Program. There's a link up at the top that you can click on, and maybe I can share this in a chat in a second, these links. The EIDL application, that's where you go for it. The Oklahoma SBDC has some really good information on their site, as well as the Department of Commerce. So those are some sites. I will find a way to get those put into the chat so you can just copy and paste them yourself. And, with all the stress that everybody's been in, I kind of feel like we need a little levity. So there you go. I think youngsters need to start thinking about what kind of world they're going to leave for me and Keith Richards, compliments of Willie Nelson. So I think everybody needs a little bit of a smile at the end of what we've gone through. And I hope that I was able to do that there. So, okay. So I'm going to stop sharing that. Okay. And it looks like we do have some questions here. So let me find where they start here. Okay, Julie sent me a link regarding faith-based institutions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that link. Thank you, Julie. And I'm going to send that. I'm just going to send that to everybody. So if you have questions, go to that. Man, that's brutal. It's going to kick me back to the top every time. If I send the link, okay. Yeah, I agree. Judging by last Friday, would not expect the rules until Monday and banks getting up to speed on Tuesday. I agree with that 100%. If the banks get the rules on Friday, even, they will not be ready to run on Monday. They're working, I know, weekends, most of the banks are, but it still probably won't be ready. So once again, give your banker just a little bit of space, drop them an email and say, hey, when you have this, let me know. Keep an eye on their website. That's probably the best thing you can do. Your banks will have information on their website probably as quick as anything. Do you have to have your business account with them? Can a personal account work? I have accounts with banks, just want to know which one to apply. If you have a commercial checking account or loan, if you have a commercial loan with somebody, that's where I really recommend you going. If you have a commercial checking account with somebody, that's where I would go second. If you have personal accounts, just pick the bank that you want to go with. It really doesn't matter. They're all going to be trying to get through them. It's just going to take time, and I can't say that one's going to go any faster than another. Can you get a copy of my slides? It'll be on our Facebook page, the Pioneer Technology Center Facebook page on YouTube. So the best way to do it would be just to go onto the YouTube, and you can pause it there. You'll be able to see this presentation going forward. So you can get the information off the slides, Kathy. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Okay. Caitlin, I don't see a question from you. You said you had to step away for just a second. Yeah, Aaron, all the funds are generally deposited to the account. So it needs, where you have your commercial, that's where you should go. That would be the best thing. Thank you, Aaron, from a former banker's perspective, a little more recent than I have been. Let's see. No, I really don't think it's going to be that hard to do it. You know, you can set it up at the same bank. I really don't think it's going to be a problem having everything at one bank, because you're just going to write a handful of checks. If you pay your payroll every 2 weeks and you have 5 employees, so that means you're going to write a total of 20 checks for payroll out of that account. And then, you know, however your remaining 2 weeks that are balanced for rent and utilities. So you shouldn't have much. So it should be pretty easy. Employers that rehire previous laid off workers will not be penalized for having a reduced payroll at the beginning of the forgiveness period. I think that's a statement, not a question. I'm not sure. Todd, if you applied with SBA, you applied for the EIDL loan. That's not a mistake. You can apply for the EIDL and the PPP. The EIDL loan you're going to use for your operating expenses. And it doesn't matter what your business is. It can pay accounts payable. If you manufacture something, it can pay your vendors. You can use it for utilities. You can use it for rent. You can use it for payroll. You can use it for anything. Those funds can be used for anything, but it is a loan. The first portion up to $10,000 could be forgiven. If you also get the Paycheck Protection Program, you don't use the funds for the same thing during the period. Now, Mr. Copeland said something today that kind of made me twist my head a little bit. He said that if you pay your 8 weeks of payroll out of the PPP like you're supposed to and use the rest of the funds the way you're supposed to, there's nothing that says later down the road you can't use the EIDL loan to pay for payroll. I would be very leery of doing that unless it's after the other loan has already been forgiven, if that makes sense. So maybe in July you start doing it after the loan was already forgiven. I can't say that you can do that. I'm not saying you can't, but that was something that he mentioned today. So Todd, I'd recommend you going ahead and applying for the PPP loan as well. And I don't know what your business is, but that's another program. Everybody should be applying for PPP. That's what everybody's saying. Todd, do you want to ask a question? You're kind of shaking your head a little bit. You can ask for clarification if you need to. If you want to unmute yourself, Todd, go ahead if you want to ask a question. Down the bottom left-hand corner. There you go.
Okay, I'm in real estate, and I didn't know that I could get the payroll deal. I wasn't aware that, because I give my employees 1099.
Okay, so thank you, Todd, for bringing that up. The Paycheck Protection Program, you are not paying 1099 employees because they are not on your payroll. They are contractors. This would be a loan for you, Todd, for your funds personally. Your 1099 employees, they will all need to apply for PPP themselves.
Okay.
That will happen next week. Don't send them to the bank this Friday. Send them next week to the bank. They will all need to apply themselves for these funds. You will not be paying them anything out of any PPP funds that you receive. Now,
Okay,
if you
well, I
want to
saw
pay
that
them
it
out of
said
idle,
commission.
you can pay them out of idle if you so desire, but you don't have to.
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean,
Call me later, Todd.
okay,
Just call me later and we can discuss it further at length.
okay.
Okay, if you go ahead and mute yourself back up, Todd. Okay, some questions here. Sole proprietors cannot apply until 410. A single member LLC who files a Schedule C treated like a sole proprietor. What about multiple member LLC filing as a partnership? If you are paying yourselves a salary, you can apply now. If you are getting dividends, no, you cannot. So if you're paying yourself salary out of an LLC, you can apply now. Starting next week, everybody can apply. So if you don't know, just wait till next week. That would be my biggest recommendation. It's not going to put you behind the curve on that. Thank you for whoever that was from YouTube. I haven't done a good job of looking at that. Okay, on the employee laid off and rehire. So they are, when I say they, the Department of Commerce is saying, try and hire everybody back, but the problem is a lot of people will be making more in unemployment than they were making in a salary. Some of those people will not want to come back to work as long as they can draw unemployment. It's a very gray area on that. My opinion is offer the people the funds to come back to work. And I want to say, those employees don't have to actually come into the office when you pay them for PPP. If you're a non-essential business and you're not allowed to open, you can still pay those employees to stay at home. They do not have to come into the office and work their normal 40-hour schedule. So they don't actually have to come in to get the funds. I don't think anybody really knows how to handle people that will not come back to work and want to file for unemployment instead. I've yet to hear a definitive answer on how you should proceed with that. I will send that email on to SBA and see what I can do to try and get that information out to you. If you will email me your questions, and I'll put my email address up again here in a minute. If you will email me direct questions that you have, I'll do my best to get those answered through SBA and see what I can do. So, like I said, the problem is it's changing so fast that sometimes it's difficult to get a consistent answer out of SBA. What documentation do you need to prove you have paid daily workers? I'm an owner of LLC. Okay, Sam. If you're paying people cash, say lawn care people, you have no obligation to prove what you paid them unless you've 1099 them. If you pay them less than, I believe it's $600, Jeff would be able to tell me for sure, but if it's under $600, you're not required to 1099 people. If they have not reported that income on their income taxes that they have received in the past, there's nothing that you can do to assist them. If you are a sole proprietor and you do 90% of your business in cash and you do not report that to the IRS, that will affect the funds that you can get through these loan programs. You have to use the numbers that you've reported to the IRS, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, somebody throw me a question out there on it. Julie responding to something I was going to talk about a minute ago, way she understands it. And Julie's kind of my counterpart down at Drumright. So her and I sit in on a lot of either the same conference calls or similar conference calls with the same people. After you've used the 8 weeks of PPP, then you could use idle funds for payroll, but PPP must be exhausted first. Once again, that's how she understands it. That's kind of what I understood today from them, but I just don't have confirmation from SBA yet on that. So I'm kind of hesitant to say yes, you can do that. So I think that that's correct. Caitlin, so if I only have an online bank, would it just be best to apply through SBA.gov? So Caitlin, if you apply through SBA.gov, you are only applying for the EIDL loan. You have to go to a bank for PPP. You can look and see if your online bank does lending through the PPP program. If they don't, I recommend just contacting one of the local banks, going to their website and seeing how they say to apply. Use your bank's website, because I will promise you it's going to be difficult to get through to one of the lenders, especially if you don't have a relationship with that bank. I tried to get a hold of one yesterday that I'm always able to get a hold of, and it was about 8 hours later, and he said he didn't have time to talk to me. And he knows that I'm talking to all of you and helping you guys, so you don't have to call him, so to speak. So I mean, when they're that busy that they can't help me to help you, it's going to be difficult for everybody to get into them. 1099 employees, Kathy, next week they will be able to apply on their own. Once again, if you own a business and your employees are all contract workers, then they have to apply on their own. You are not applying for them. You are not going to pay them with the proceeds of the PPP program. Terry, thank you for sharing my email, Ben E at pioneertech.edu. Feel free to reach out to me there. Karen, if you're an essential business and you have employees working during this time, does the business have to cover hours that are accounted for doing essential work? Or can 100% of the pay be covered by PPP? So Karen, in this case, whether you're open or not, you apply for the loan, you get the 10 weeks of payroll, 2.5 times your monthly payroll. You use those funds to pay your employees first. The money that you didn't pay out, so basically you quote unquote saved, put that in a savings account for the rainy day that still may happen later down the road. So you're going to exhaust the PPP funds before you use your funds. Does that make sense, Karen? Okay, you're nodding your head there, so that makes sense. Good. Let me pull up YouTube again just to make sure there's nothing else there. Okay, that's all that I see on that. Any other questions that you guys have for me on these programs? Feel free to email me, Benny at Pioneer Tech. Let me go ahead let me scroll down here. Let me go ahead and just copy and paste this on here. Okay, here are the links that I tried to, oops, I sent that to Terry. Let me send that to everybody. That doesn't look like it got all the links. Okay. I have to do them one at a time here. Okay, this first link is for the U.S. Treasury. So if you can open a Word document or something, if you're on your computer, you can copy these into a Word document and just look at them later. The second one is the COVID relief website through SBA. That's where you will go to fill out your EIDL loan application, not your PPP. Once again, you'll go directly to your bank for the PPP. SBDC website, that's just for information regarding the program, some links to frequently asked questions, different things like that. And this final one is for the Commerce Department, the Oklahoma Department of Commerce. They have some very good links, some very good information on that as well. So if I recommend trying to go out there and look at those sites. For those of you that heard earlier, I've taken more phone calls in the last 2 weeks than I've taken in the last 6 months on my cell phone. I am working from home. I'm high risk, so I can't come into the office. I came in today just for this presentation, but then I'll be leaving. So I am available by voicemail or by email, and I'm putting in my cell phone number. So feel free to call me on Wow, that looks horrible. I don't know why that. It's 405-880-1280. Let's try that again. Feel free to call me on that if you need to. Email is for sure the best way to get a hold of me, because a lot of times I need to research something and I can respond to you via email more accurately than just trying to think about it on the phone. But feel free to call if you have questions. And I hope everybody got something out of this. I know it wasn't necessarily just groundbreaking information, but this is a lot of the information that is difficult for the banks to get out to. We had about 35 people that I saw on here. That's 35 people that didn't have to call their banks to get this exact same information. And so they maybe could have prepared 10 sets of these PPP loan paperwork in that amount of time that I just saved them. So hopefully it helped people and you get something out of it. Once again, you can go to the Pioneer Tech Facebook page, get a link to the YouTube. You can find Pioneer Tech on YouTube, follow that page. And then there's a link on the Pioneer Tech Business and Industry website. My link, you can see it from there as well. So if there's no other questions for me today, I think that'll be all. I will look at, one thing that was brought up earlier to me. Jeff, you forgot to ask me that question. If you hire through like a TPI staffing or personnel staffing or one of those are not employees. Those are an expense on your tax returns. So you will not pay, those people will not be on your payroll. Those are paid by those companies. You just pay for them to come work for you. So you're not going to count them as employees. Julie, will you agree that that's the way you understand that? Or Meredith even? I know that you both have been involved in a lot of stuff, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, Ben, I actually had someone ask that question, and that's my understanding as well.
Okay, perfect. So if you have 30 full-time employees and then you hire 10 through TPI on a daily basis, those 10 do not count against you. It's just those 30.
Oh, I understand it.
Okay, so I think that that's pretty good. And SBA, I sent an email to them earlier, and they responded, and that's the way that they don't respond in exact terms, but they said the staffing agency would use the PPP. So if there's nothing else, guys, we'll call this done. I may try and do another one next week, depending upon the information that we get regarding sole proprietors and self-employed, to decide if that information is best disseminated through something like this or just an email. For those of you that emailed me that did attend the meeting, I will either send you another link or I will just send you the information directly, depending upon how we do it. If you did not send me an email, if you let me know on Facebook or if you text me, please email me so I can I've got a folder that I'm saving everybody's contact information in. Please email me at benny@pioneertech.edu so I can make sure to send you either another Zoom meeting or that information directly for sole proprietors and self-employed. So perfect. Thank you all for attending. Once again, I hope you get something out of it. Don't hesitate to call me, email me, whatever we can do. I hope everybody has a great week and best of luck through these trying times. Wash your hands, don't touch your face.